Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is July 3rd. On this day in 2015, a woman disappeared from a quiet Kentucky town and left behind far more than just a missing persons case. 35-year-old Crystal Rogers, a devoted mother of 5, vanished without a trace. Her car was later found abandoned with her purse, phone, and keys still inside. Her disappearance would set off a years-long journey of heartbreak, suspicion, and a relentless pursuit of answers, all unfolding in Bardstown, a town that, by then, was no stranger to tragedy. But this story isn't just about mystery, it's about the strength of a family and a case that nearly a decade later is finally heading toward justice. Today, we're going to talk about the disappearance of Crystal Rogers and what's going on with the case right now. Let's get started. July 4th weekend in Bardstown usually means fireworks, family gatherings, and backyard barbecues. But in 2015, something felt off. Crystal Rogers had last been seen the night before, July 3rd. She was home with her boyfriend, Brooks Hauck, and their 2-year-old son. Crystal also had 4 other children from previous relationships, and those closest to her knew. She didn't just disappear. She wasn't the type of mother who would walk away from her kids, especially not without saying a word. When Brooks spoke with investigators, he didn't give the story that a lot of partners give in situations like this. He didn't tell them that he and Crystal had had a fight and she stormed out or anything like that. Instead, he said that they'd had a quiet evening in. According to him, Crystal was playing games on her phone when he went to bed. But by the time he woke up, she was gone. 2 days later, on July 5th, Crystal's maroon Chevy Impala was found abandoned on the Bluegrass Parkway. It had a flat tire. Her keys, purse, and cell phone were all still inside. But there was no sign of Crystal. Her family immediately knew that something was horribly, horribly wrong. Crystal had a close bond with her parents, Tommy and Sherry Ballard, and if she had had car trouble or needed to get away or whatever other possible innocent excuse there could be for her car being abandoned, she would have contacted somebody. But because her car was found and because nobody had heard from her and she clearly didn't have belongings with her, suspicion quickly fell on the last person who saw her, Brooks Hauck. From the start, Crystal's family questioned Brooks' story, and they weren't alone. The investigation raised eyebrows almost immediately. On July 8th, just days after Crystal went missing, Brooks gave a TV interview saying he had nothing to hide. But something about it just didn't sit right with people. He spoke of Crystal in the past tense, for instance, and for many, that was a major red flag. Then came the polygraph, or rather, the lack of one. Brooks initially refused to take the test, and when he finally did, the results were reportedly inconclusive. And what happened next only deepened suspicion. During one of Brooks's early police interviews, he received a call from his brother, Nick Hauck, a Bardstown police officer. That call, which was caught on a recording, seemed to advise Brooks not to cooperate. Nick was later fired from the force for interfering with the case. Investigators eventually brought cadaver dogs to Brooks's farm, the same place he claimed to have been on July 3rd, the day that Crystal Rogers was last seen. The dogs did alert to the possible presence of human remains, but a thorough search turned up nothing. At least, not then. So, no arrests were made. As the years passed, it felt like the case was slipping further into the shadows. But one person refused to let that happen. Tommy Ballard, Crystal's father. Tommy made it his mission to find out what had happened to his daughter and who was responsible. He organized search parties, he spoke to the media, he kept Crystal's name in the headlines and on billboards lining Kentucky roads. Then, in 2016, just over a year after Crystal vanished, tragedy struck again. Tommy was out hunting with Crystal's 12-year-old son when he was shot and killed. His death was ruled a homicide, and to this day, it remains unsolved. The people of Bardstown, already grappling with a string of mysterious cases, were left shaken. The 2013 ambush of Officer Jason Ellis, the brutal murders of Kathy and Samantha Netherland in 2014, and now Crystal and her father? For many, it felt like something was deeply wrong in their small town. In 2020, there was finally movement in Crystal's case, and it came from the FBI. Federal agents took over the investigation and executed more than 50 search warrants across Bardstown. They seized electronics from properties tied to Brooks Hauck and his family. Then they returned to one of his properties with cadaver dogs, forensic teams, and ground-penetrating radar. This time, something was found. But whatever it was, the FBI hasn't said. In 2021, agents revisited the Nelson County Fairgrounds where Crystal had attended an event shortly before her disappearance. Again, they collected evidence, and again, they stayed tight-lipped. But behind the scenes, things were happening. New witnesses had come forward, technology had improved, and investigators were finally connecting the dots. By October 2022, the FBI said they were, quote, on the cusp of significant progress, end quote. And they weren't wrong. On September 7th, 2023, more than 8 years after Crystal Rogers disappeared, Brooks Hauck was indicted for her murder. That indictment stated that Brooks killed Crystal on or around July 3rd, 2015, and then worked with others to cover it up. He was also charged with tampering with physical evidence. When arrested, Brooks pleaded not guilty, but the judge set his bond at a staggering $10 million cash. His defense team quickly filed motions to suppress critical evidence, including statements from jail informants and digital data pulled from phones and search warrants. And Brooks wasn't the only one facing charges. In August 2023, Joseph Lawson, aged 32, was indicted for conspiracy to commit murder. Court documents later revealed that he allegedly helped plan Crystal's death and aided in disposing of her body. In September of that year, Stephen Lawson was arrested for facilitating to commit murder. He was accused of supporting those who were directly involved. In 2024, court records hinted at major developments, including new cooperating witnesses that had come forward. One claimed that Brooks had not only confessed, but had explained how Crystal's body was hidden. In March 2025, prosecutors and defense attorneys clashed over what digital forensics would be allowed at trial, including deleted messages and cell phone tower records that allegedly placed Brooks near the site where Crystal's car was found. And in May 2025, the judge confirmed, this will be tried as a no-body homicide case. The trial is currently set to begin in October 2025. The prosecution has announced that they will seek the death penalty for Brooks Hauck, citing aggravating factors, including efforts to cover up the crime and the emotional devastation inflicted on Crystal's family. For Sherry Ballard, Crystal's mother, the indictments marked a turning point, a long-awaited moment of hope. But for a family that has endured so much, there's still so much pain. Sherry continues to fight. For Crystal, for Tommy, and for the countless families like hers who are still waiting for answers. She runs a Facebook page dedicated to her daughter's case and works with national groups advocating for the missing and murdered. Crystal's story has been featured on Dateline, 2020, and Cold Justice, and public interest remains high, and for good reason. It's a reminder of how easily justice can be delayed when influence and silence collide in a small town. Today, as Bardstown braces for the trial ahead, many locals say that they're hopeful, but guarded. They want closure, they want the truth, and above all, they want Crystal's name to be remembered not just as a victim, but as a mother, daughter, and a sister whose life mattered. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Crystal's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!